Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks celebrating the Pride Month of June this year. And we have deck number 6 for you today, which is Gruulfriends, and that title will make sense in just a second, but in case you missed the first few episodes, what we're doing is building a Magic the Gathering commander deck using 2 non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less, and using Magic as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for the entirety of June. So today, our 2 commanders are probably the most prominent LGBT couple in Magic the Gathering in terms of the story and the lore, and that is Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, and Nissa, Vastwood Seer. So Chandra is 1 red for a 2/2 legendary creature human shaman. Whenever you cast a red spell, untap Chandra, and then you can tap Chandra to deal 1 damage to target player. If she's dealt 3 or more damage this turn, exile her, then return her to the battlefield transformed. Her girlfriend Nissa, very similar, 2 and a green for a 2/2 legendary creature elf scout. When she enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic forest card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, exile Nissa, then return her to the battlefield transformed. And as we've already mentioned, they both transform, so once they transform, they turn into Chandra Roaring Flame and Nissa Sage Animist. Chandra is a 4 loyalty planeswalker that has a +1 ability that deals 2 damage to target player, -2 deals 2 damage to target creature, and -7 deals 6 damage to each opponent, and each player dealt damage this way gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 3 damage to you. Nissa is a 3 loyalty planeswalker with a +1 ability of reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into your hand. -2, make a legendary 4/4 green elemental creature token named Ashaya the Awoken World, and -7, untap up to 6 target lands. They become 6/6 elemental creatures, and they're still lands. So both of these commanders are also planeswalkers, and they don't really interact well with each other, right? In terms of mechanics, Chandra is dealing damage, Nissa is getting lands, so we had to find a way to make our themes connect between our 2 commanders, and the main thing that we're going to be doing is, for our first theme, focusing on Chandra. Being able to play as many Chandra planeswalkers as we can puts us in a position where we're able to kind of deal damage with our Chandra planeswalkers, and then we're able to ramp with our Nissa planeswalkers. So we have just about every single Chandra and Nissa planeswalker in this deck. Obviously there's a couple that have come out since I have made this deck, so they did not unfortunately get included, but if you're interested you can check those out as well. So to give an example of the Chandras in our deck, we have Chandra Heart of Fire, which is 3 red for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker Chandra. +1, discard your hand, then exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way. +1, Chandra deals 2 damage to any target. And -9, search your graveyard and library for any number of red instant or sorcery cards. Exile them, then shuffle your library. You may cast them this turn, add 6 red mana. Nissa, as an example of what she can do, we have Nissa Vital Force, which is 3 green for a 5 loyalty planeswalker Nissa. +1, untap target land you control. Until your next turn, it becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. -3, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and -6, you get an emblem with, whenever a land enters under your control, you may draw a card. So again, Nissa and Chandra, while in story actual girlfriends, don't really synergize super heavily with their planeswalker cards. So we're kind of using them to fulfill alternating tasks. We want Chandra to be a lot of our damage dealing, we want Nissa to be a lot of our ramp, and then if we play our cards right, both of them can actually function as card advantage engines. So that is the first 2 major themes of our deck, and the third theme to kind of tie it all together is preventing our opponents from attacking our planeswalkers, and more specifically, trying to force our opponents to attack each other. that kind of puts us in a situation where we get to keep our planeswalkers around, generate value, and hopefully win the game with some ultimates. So a good example of what we're trying to do to protect our planeswalkers is Vow of Lightning, which is 2 and a red for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. So if our opponents have this massive threat on board that we know can take out our planeswalkers, we can put the vows on it to make sure that it can still attack, but it cannot attack us or our planeswalkers. So that's the general theme of what we're trying to do, and the main goal of our deck. Now the next piece of this deck tech, we're going to move on and talk about some key cards in this deck. These are cards that synergize really well with what we're trying to do, and in some cases are win conditions or value engines all on their own. So the very first card I want to talk about is the Chain Veil, and the Chain Veil is probably the MVP in the deck, because it's 4 mana for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability of a planeswalker this turn, you lose 2 life, but for 4 mana and tap it, for each planeswalker you control, you may activate one of its loyalty abilities once this turn, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated. This essentially allows us for 4 mana to activate all of our planeswalkers twice in one turn. And a good portion of them really just need 2 activations to do something incredibly powerful. Nissa, that we just talked about, ultimates at 6, but starts at 5 loyalty, so all we'd have to do is activate her +1, and we can immediately ultimate her the turn she hits the board, meaning we don't have to try to protect her to work toward that point. The Chain Veil also allows us to double up on things like the ramp, the card draw, the damage, and it really helps us control the board, protect our planeswalkers, and put ourselves in a position where it's much easier to ultimate them and win the game. Moving on to key card number 2, we have Repeated Reverberation. Similar to the Chain Veil, but this is more of a burst activation effect for our loyalty abilities. This is 2 red for an instant. When you next cast an instant spell, cast a sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy that spell or ability twice. You may choose new targets for the copy. So essentially, 4 mana, just like the Chain Veil, but this is going to let us activate at least 1 loyalty ability 3 times in one turn, because we get to copy it twice. We don't get the additional loyalty on the planeswalkers, but we do get the additional ability. And this has the added bonus of being able to also copy instants or sorceries, which we of course do have in the deck. So being able to have that utility is very important to what we're trying to do. And then last but not least, our final key card is Sarkhan the Masterless, the only planeswalker in the deck that is not a Chandra or a Nissa. And that is because this is the win condition for this deck. Sarkhan is 3 red for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker Sarkhan. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. Admittedly, we don't have a ton of dragons, but most importantly for Sarkhan is his +1 ability. Until the end of turn, each planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon creature and gains flying. It also has a -3 to create a 4/4 dragon token, but we're really focused on that +1. And that's because if we can flood the board with a bunch of planeswalkers, we can then turn them into 4/4s, they can attack our opponents, and it turns our planeswalkers not just into the normal win condition of activate abilities, generate value, win the game, but they can just more directly win the game by just attacking our opponents. So that is why Sarkhan deserves a pass for being the only non-Chandra or Nissa planeswalker. It's just that good. So those are all of our key cards for today, and the next thing I want to do is take a look at some cool interactions. These are cards that really synergize with each other, but in most cases are just kind of fun cards that I want to highlight because they might work in unique ways. So the very first cool interaction I want to talk about is Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, and Chandra's Regulator. And yes, I know, they're both from core set 20, so obviously they're synergizing together, they were from the same set, but they work incredibly well. So Chandra is 1 red for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker Chandra. She has a 0 ability to put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. She has another 0 ability to create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, and a -2, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card would be put into the graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Chandra's Regulator is 1 and a red for a legendary artifact. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra Planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy, then you can pay 1 and tap it to discard a mountain or a red card and draw a card. So the most important reason that I wanted to highlight these 2 cards is with the Chandra's Regulator ability to double up on an ability from a Chandra Planeswalker, and the most important one is obviously Chandra's first 0 ability to put a loyalty counter on each red Planeswalker you control. And so if we can double up on Chandra's first loyalty ability, then adding 2 counters to every red Planeswalker we control means that we can essentially take some of our Planeswalkers who may be 1 or 2 turns or 1 or 2 loyalty away from their ultimate ability and just immediately ultimate them kind of out of nowhere. And that's one way that we can really make sure that we are getting ahead of our opponents in value and probably winning the game from that point on. That is, though, only cool interaction number 1. So, moving on to cool interaction number 2, we have Nissa Ascended Animist and Luxior Giada's Gift. Nissa is 3 green and then 2 Phyrexian green, which is a completed ability. So if we pay 2 life instead of 2 green mana, then we would have her enter with 2 less loyalty counters for each of the Phyrexian that we paid for, which means that we could technically pay 5 mana and 4 life and have her come in at 3 loyalty, but we're going to assume that she's coming in with the full 7 loyalty. And the reason for that is because she has a +1, create an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token, where X is her loyalty, -1, destroy an artifact or enchantment, and -7, until the end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. Now, the reason I want to highlight this Nissa is because she has the highest starting loyalty among any of our Planeswalkers, and therefore, if we attach Luxior Giada's Gift to her, we can really get out of hand. And the main reason for that is because Luxior is 1 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a Planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Notably, you can still activate the Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. It equips to a Planeswalker for 1, and it equips to a creature for 3. So if we have Nissa and we equip Luxior to her, she would automatically become a 7/7 creature. Plus, she still has that +1 ability to make a 7/7 creature, although I guess if she comes in at 7, that would be an 8/8, and then she also becomes an 8/8. So Luxior really just turns Nissa into a battering ram of a creature that is now impossible to kill because our opponents can't attack into her. They can only attack, maybe block her, but they can't specifically attack her down like you could a normal Planeswalker. And so that is our second cool interaction for this deck, and the final piece of our deck tech for today is to talk about the deck's price. Now, despite the fact that we are a Super Friends deck, we did only come in at $81.73, which personally I think is relatively low for a Super Friends deck. But our most expensive card is one of our Planeswalkers in Chandra Awakened Inferno. And she is 4 red for a 6 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Chandra. This spell can't be countered. She has a +2. Each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 1 damage to you. -3, Chandra deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. And -X, she deals X damage to target creature or Planeswalker, and if a permanent dealt damage this way would die, exile it. Despite the fact that this is the most expensive card in the deck at $8.61, she is very much worth the inclusion into the deck because she provides kind of an inevitability. That +2 giving everybody an emblem means that if your opponents can't deal with it, eventually they will die to the emblem. I understand that it is a very long and arduous process, but it's something that's relevant because you're going to play her +2. She's immediately going to go up to 8 loyalty, making her incredibly difficult to kill. She can also be a board wipe. She can be a removal spell. She really does do everything we want our Chandra Planeswalkers to be able to do. So for that purpose, I do think she is relevant to the deck. If you do need to trim on budget, you can cut out this Chandra. Like I said earlier, there are some Nissas and Chandras that were not included in this deck because they came out after the deck was built. So you could throw those in to trim down the price a little bit. That, though, brings us to the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you all so much for watching. If you're interested in supporting this channel, I will be putting up Pride Month deck techs every single day for the entire month of June, so please join us along for that. If you're interested, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to go a little bit above and beyond, you can find us over on Patreon or right here on YouTube as a channel member. So a huge shout out to our current patrons and channel members. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to everyone who has participated so far in our daily Pride Month decks. I really do appreciate it. And as always, I hope everyone has an amazing Pride Month. Have a great time, enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.